It requires our government to come together and think hard about our priorities over the coming year. This process requires a great deal of engagement from all across our county and a lot of hard work by our staff to develop a budget that demonstrates fiscal discipline. I want to thank everyone involved in this process for their input and for their hard work. I also want to thank our community leaders who are present here this morning. Thank you so much for taking time out to join us. We certainly couldn't have presented it without you. And I most especially would like to thank the men and women of Prince George's County government who made sure that in a time that none of us could have anticipated, and I dare say one of the most challenging times in recent memory, they still continue to make sure that our community receive the services that they deserve. Our budget reflects our understanding that this government is made up of employees, and we value our employees highly. To this end, this budget includes a fair cost of living increase. In the FY23 budget, we are walking the path we laid out for Prince George's County at the beginning of this administration. As the economy continues to rebound, wages continue to rise, and demand for housing in Prince George's County continues to grow, this administration has delivered on the promises that we've made. Our proud priorities have served as a map for this county, first through a time of hardship and now into a time of rising opportunity. Even amid opportunity, our residents still face hardship. We are all concerned by the war in Ukraine, rising gas prices, and rising inflation. And while things are volatile now, everything that we've seen in government points to a broad and rapid economic recovery for our county and for our region. In the present, we understand that families are affected by rising food costs and rising fuel costs, and that the pandemic hit our county harder than any jurisdiction in our region. In the past, an event like this would have set our county back decades. But Prince George's County is incredibly resilient. The economic outlook for our county is bright as we see that new companies continue to come here, jobs continue to come here, and wages will continue to rise. Through our FY 2023 budget, we have chosen to meet this moment with discipline and caution in order to capture this time of rising opportunity for Prince Georgians. This administration is guided by a set of policy objectives that we outlined at the very beginning. Together, they are called our proud priorities. We developed our proud priorities with our community to fuel progress and growth. These priorities address issues like health equity, increasing the commercial tax base, and beautification efforts in our neighborhoods. Across these categories, we created 175 policy recommendations for our county to follow. Our proud priorities have served as a compass for all that we do. Even as we adjusted our efforts to combat a global pandemic, we never lost focus on these goals. And I'm proud to say that to date, 151 of our proud priority policies are either completed or ongoing. Last year, the budget was uncertain. Like communities across the nation, our budget was in flux as a result of COVID-19. Thanks to better than expected outcomes locally, state and federal assistance, and our own disciplined, cautious approach to budgeting during this volatile time, our budget outlook has improved greatly. Now, looking to our 2023 budget, we are confident that our county can continue to responsibly make progress to benefit our residents. We're taking steps forward on our proud priorities while using the budget to address new issues that were magnified by the pandemic. We understand that taxpayers are trusting us to use these dollars responsibly. That's why we've maintained budget discipline. In this way, we can continue to make progress while remaining in line with our fiscal policies. Our FY 2023 budget continues the sound fiscal policies that earned our county a AAA bond rating, and we maintain them even during a global pandemic. Today, we are unveiling a budget that reflects discipline and confidence just as we have during our past 2 budget cycles. We want to unlock opportunities for all of our communities, some that have missed out on opportunity for too long. In our FY2023 budget, we are making these investments with discipline. We will meet the needs of residents today and over the long term with a plan for the future. Now, before I get into the FY2023 proposed budget, I would like to briefly recap the past year, as we have accomplished a great deal for our residents. First, you'll see our virtual permit cafe is improving the permitting and licensing process for county-based businesses and residents. Our speed e-procurement system will modernize Prince George's County procurement, making the process easier for businesses. Our new American Job Center at National Harbor has already helped residents and employers learn new skills and promote gainful employment. And our Green Book campaign is helping to connect small and minority-owned businesses with millions of dollars. We launched the Alternative Construction Finance Program for school construction, which unlocked $225 million in contracting opportunities for minority-owned businesses. We are building 3 schools through traditional construction, giving our students access to new opportunity. We are also in the process of building 6 new schools in record time through the Alternative Construction Financing Project, which means last year, still in the middle of a pandemic, we broke ground on 9 new schools in Prince George's County. I'm proud to announce that our Alternative Construction Financing Project is now a national finalist in the P3 Awards for Social Infrastructure Project of the Year. And we'll be really pleased to have our school CEO, who's going up to New York next week, to be present for that award ceremony. We broke ground on a new behavioral health facility, which will provide residents with greater access to mental health and addiction care. We launched the county's first violence interruption program, the Hope in Action Anti-Violence Project, which attacks the root causes of violence from every angle. And we opened a new Women Veteran Center, adopting our framework for veteran care to a more modern one that has helped veterans and their families better access benefits, employment, housing, and education. Speaking of housing, we've taken aggressive steps to preserve affordable housing for our county's families, seniors, and workforce. For the first time in our county's history, we exercised the right of first refusal to preserve affordable units. This effort is a part of a broader one seeking to protect communities across the county from runaway housing costs. We built on our previous success with food assistance by giving out 4 million meals through Stand Up and Deliver, and we delivered over 1 million meals to homebound seniors. We reintroduced Saturday bus service, and we established a new Office of Multicultural Affairs to connect immigrant communities to the government and other opportunities. We launched a new and improved curbside bulky trash collection service that allows residents to set out 2 bulky items per week with their trash collection rather than having to schedule a pickup through PGC 311. Now, I like to begin these budget presentations with a high-level summary of all of our accomplishments, and I do that for a few reasons. First, I know that all of our county employees work so hard to make these accomplishments happen, and I'm so appreciative of all of their efforts, and I just want them to hear of those accomplishments. I also like to highlight these accomplishments because more often than not, people think budget presentations are a bit boring. The truth of the matter is all of the numbers that we went over last year turned into care for our residents. These numbers to us are meaningful because every allocation we make becomes a service offered to someone living here in Prince George's County. These numbers provide aid to veterans. They provide hope to youth at risk for gun violence. These numbers provide schools, health care, and transportation. These numbers help us with essential services like filling potholes and trimming trees, and they help improve the quality of life of our residents, like changing the life of a child for the better giving meals to a senior, or providing care for someone who is sick. On their own, these budget numbers can be a little dry, but taken together, these numbers represent opportunity for Prince Georgians. COVID-19 was an unexpected, once-in-a-generation challenge, one that has changed our lives and changed the world. And despite that, we are still here, still planning and still sprinting to deliver the greatest future possible for Prince George's County during this time of rising opportunity. Now, I'd like to outline our proposed FY2023 budget, beginning with a high-level summary of expenses and expenditures these past few fiscal years, and then I want to go over some of our key investments also for the coming year. Here you'll see a snapshot of all funds from FY 2021 to our proposed budget for FY 2023. We have seen a 9.9% increase in revenues from FY 2022 to FY 23. Our proposed expenditures over the same period are 9.9% higher as well. When including general fund revenues and other sources of revenue, we have a $5 billion budget for FY 2023. We're proud to carry on a track record of fiscal responsibility. As this budget, and I want to just point to Stan Early, who has done an amazing job along with our entire budget staff, this budget does not use any reserve fund balance. Let me just say that again. This budget does not use any reserve fund balance dollars, and that's amazing. This kind of fiscal prudence helps us maintain our county's good financial position and helps us to maintain our AAA bond rating. So said in another way, we didn't dip into our savings to pay for our budget, and Stan made sure that that was the case. You see we have proposed $4.2 billion in total revenues, representing a year-over-year increase. And this continues a trend in our county of growing revenues. Our general fund revenues break down into a few major categories. The largest source of funds is aid to the Board of Education, followed by property taxes and income taxes. The Board of Education also accounts for our largest source of expenditures. This is followed by public safety funding, and then there are other sources of government spending to include human services, infrastructure, the environment, the courts, and all other government agencies. But for a moment, let's take time to focus on the Board of Education spending. Our FY 2023 budget proposes a 12.2% increase in funding for the Board of Education for a total of $2.63 billion. The county is providing $847 million with $15 million in operating funds for financing alternative construction finance projects for school construction. Here we have a summary of our capital improvement program expenditures. And for in-depth information, we'll make the entire proposed budget available, so you know, online. And that link will be available in the coming days. Now here you can see our proposed capital budget broken down by agency and by program. Our capital improvement program will provide $1.2 billion to the Board of Education for school construction and improvements for staff and students, over $500 million for public works, over $500 million for stormwater management, and $267 million to support renovations at the community college. As we consider the FY 2023 budget, we need to bear in mind funds available to us through the American Rescue Plan Act. These federal dollars have provided an infusion of funds to local jurisdictions across the nation, helping to make up for shortfalls we saw as a result of the pandemic. You should know that we're making the most of our ARPA funds through investments in this community. These funds are working with our FY 2023 budget, magnifying the impact our investments are able to make for our residents. This is especially true for stormwater management, economic recovery efforts, and updates to county services. As we all know, COVID-19 has had a tremendous and irreversible effect. As our county has responded to many of the new challenges presented by this pandemic, the challenges we sought to address before the pandemic must still be overcome. Even with change, the priorities that we identified at the beginning of this administration are still meaningful, some now more than ever. We are focused on reducing violent crime, increasing community beautification efforts, making investments to combat the effects of climate change, spurring greater economic development, expanding affordable housing, delivering on a promise to build state-of-the-art school facilities, and strengthening our communities. These priorities help our county make the most of rising opportunity. And I want to take time to talk through each of these. So first, let's preview our investments and initiatives intended to reduce crime, violent crime. Crime has risen across the nation, and we're taking steps in Prince George's County to reverse this trend. The efforts we're making in this budget to reduce violent crime are a part of a broader strategy to keep our communities safe. We're funding new positions with the police department that will expand the capacity of our forensics team. We have also allocated $5 million for 2 new recruit classes of police officers. At the same time, we're expanding our investment in equipment like the new license plate readers. We have also allocated $641,000 to provide new incentives to recruit police officers. Finally, our budget includes funding for 2 new entities under the Maryland Police Accountability Act of 2021. We will fund 3 positions for the Police Accountability Board, moving 2 positions from the CCOP, and creating a community developer position. This budget includes additional funding for the Administrative Charging Committee, which will have 6 new positions and stipends for the Administrative Hearing Board. Our beautification efforts are an important way that we prevent hazards from developing on our roads and in our waterways. They're also important for preserving the natural beauty of our community while helping to prevent the accumulation of unsightly litter. For the FY2023 budget, we have identified several ways to support efforts to keep Prince George's County clean and beautiful. We are allocating $3.3 million for a number of litter reduction programs. This includes our anti-dumping surveillance program, anti-litter public education, new signage, and litter removal from local waterways. Now, in the future, and I want to put an emphasis on this point, and I hope our community leaders will spread this and help us to talk with our public about it. In the future, we would like to see our line item for expenses for litter shrink. The fact of the matter is, and this is something that my dad said to me, and it's so true, litter doesn't grow like trees or like grass. And so we hear so much, we spend so much money on litter pickup and litter collection. We want our residents to understand that beautification does not just mean litter collection. It's kind of like me saying I'm going to come to your house and make it more beautiful, and I'm going to first pick up the beer bottles and the soda cans out the front yard. That's not beautification. Beautification is planting trees and flowers and putting down mulch. And so it is my hope that beautification in the long run will begin to change our residents' hearts and minds around litter and illegal dumping. The point of the matter is we would like to see the millions of dollars that we spend on litter collection transformed soon into planting and other things that will make our community beautiful, and that we will begin to see a culture shift around litter. And to make a long story short, that we won't throw it down there in the first place, that the Chick-fil-A bags and such will go out the window. In addition, we've increased funding for our Clean Lot program to a total of $2.4 million to make sure we can clean up properties that are overgrown and have become dumping sites. And last, we're increasing our funding for our Solid Waste Management Fund, which includes funds for our new Clear the Curb initiative to support waste collection programs. Clear the Curb is our way of providing improved and expanded services for waste collection for county residents, carried out in an environmentally friendly way. And we've also allocated $5 million for new toters. And we'll discuss that more in the future. The team is looking at me. We're also protecting our communities with new investments to reduce the effects of flooding. Because of climate change, this is an area of growing concern. We want to mitigate the effects of flooding now and make investments that reduce the risk of flooding in the future. As you can see here, we've allocated $20.6 million to our local watershed protection and restoration fund. We've also allotted $95.9 million for the Stormwater Management Fund operating budget and $149.8 million for stormwater management projects in the Capital Improvement Program. These hundreds of millions of dollars will go towards projects across the county that will improve water quality and mitigate the impacts of flooding, most especially in the southern part of the county where we've seen a lot of concern around flooding. As you all know, Prince George's County is poised to grow over the coming decade. And to manage that growth and maximize its benefit for our community, we have undertaken a comprehensive economic development plan that helps us grow in a smart way. Now, the FY2023 budget is an opportunity to move closer to our economic development goals. First, we have allocated $9.5 million for our economic development agencies. These agencies to continue to provide important support for our economic development goals across the county. We are also increasing resources for permitting and inspections. We've increased resources for staff augmentation to support engineering consultants in commercial inspections. And at the same time, we are providing $4 million for IT initiatives like the new Momentum permitting and licensing system, the permit queuing system, and project docs, all of which are making it easier to navigate our permitting and licensing process. We're also providing $21 million to help revitalize properties, particularly within the Beltway, with a focus on transit-oriented mixed-use and mixed-income development projects. As we work to grow in a smart way, we absolutely believe that we cannot have quality economic development without affordable housing. That's why our FY2023 budget continues to make historic investments in affordable housing. Our Department of Housing and Community Development will strengthen the Housing Investment Trust Fund with a $10 million allocation in this year's budget. At the same time, DHCD will work to ensure economic growth is equitable by supporting existing residents and assisting low-income homeowners. We have allocated $6 million for these programs to preserve current affordable housing. We have also allocated the funding needed to create a long-term framework for the Housing Opportunities for All work group. As we work to grow and develop in a smart way, we must continue to provide health and human services that meet the needs of our community. We're planning several new investments in our health and human services cluster of agencies to protect Prince Georgians and provide greater access to coordinated food services. Our Department of Family Services will receive $1.5 million to provide safe housing for survivors of domestic violence and human trafficking. These funds will be used to expand capacity for these life-saving programs. We are also allocating additional funding to the Office of Veterans Affairs to help expand outreach to veterans, bringing their overall budget to $457,300. We have allocated funding as well to our Department of Social Services, and I'm really excited about this one, for a food distribution coordinator to really coordinate our efforts toward providing food to our residents and eliminating food insecurity. We are also expanding the Prince George's Health Assurance Program with $13 million in funding allocated over 3 years that will help cover 50,000 uninsured Prince Georgians with quality health insurance. Along with these categories, we've made a number of other important investments across a broad spectrum of programs and initiatives. Our Department of Public Works and Transportation will receive funding to further our Vision Zero efforts, a program that seeks to make our roadways safe for all users and end traffic deaths by 2040. The Department of Public Works and Transportation will also receive $750,000 to enhance bus services in high-need areas, supporting mobility for essential workers and county residents. And we have allotted $1.5 million for reentry programs across multiple agencies to reduce recidivism and provide tools for returning citizens. As we work to move past the COVID-19 pandemic, the investments we are announcing today set our community up for growth. These investments help make sure that growth benefits every Prince Georgian. We're proud to present this budget not only to our county council, but to every resident in Prince George's County. Together, we can continue working to achieve an even brighter future and ensure this time of rising opportunity lifts all of Prince George's County for generations to come. Thank you, and now I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
So we'll take questions. We're going to have Budget Director Stan Early and CAO Tara Jackson come up as well. Tracy.
Was anything cut in this budget? Is there anything that exists before that won't exist after, or is not going to be as funded?
You want to talk a little bit about Stan? Cuts. She's looking for, I don't know, any cut. No.
There are program adjustments, but, I'm sorry.
Not really cuts, but.
Yeah, there's some program adjustments, but I wouldn't say that there are any program eliminations.
What program adjustments can you highlight?
Well, I'm trying to think of something. We have made some changes in the way we handle some of the replacement of road surfaces and so forth, but that, I guess, collectively is really an expansion. Now that I think about it, I'll have to come back to you because I can't tell you a program that is materially reduced. So I'll have to get back to you on that.
Any other questions? Oh, Rachel?
Yes, sorry. I was wondering if you could talk a bit more about the really sort of large jump in public safety funding. Is a lot of that going towards crime fighting, or is it going toward the reform efforts? Or if you could just break down a little bit more that big jump for you this year.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so it's balanced. What you're seeing in the dollars that we've allocated for our police department addresses many of the concerns that we have had over the last several years. Some of them are geared toward addressing the rise in violence that we've seen in our county that helps us with our crime fighting. So, for example, you'll see that we have invested additional dollars in license plate readers and our forensics experts, things that allow us to respond to violent crime and to better investigate crime. But you'll also see that we allocated $5 million for 2 new recruit classes of police officers. And of course, this addresses a concern that exists not only in Prince George's, but across the nation in terms of the loss of police officers that we've seen, the very dramatic loss in police officers and the difficulty that we've had in recruiting new officers. You'll notice $640,000 to provide new incentives to recruit police officers, and part of what we're really proud about in that number is that there is an additional emphasis on attracting officers who reside in Prince George's County. And so we have, for example, signing bonuses for our officers who live in Prince George's County. We are working as well to put together a number of programs that will address tuition reimbursement, that will address things like housing. So we are a real heavy emphasis on creating officers who live here. But the budget also includes funding for 2 new entities that were created under the Maryland Police Accountability Act of 2021. And so we are also responding to the changing environment that we're seeing by funding positions for the Police Accountability Board and creating a community developer position. We are also funding the Administrative Charging Committee with 6 new positions and stipends for an Administrative Hearing Board. And so it is a balance that helps us to address all of the issues we've seen. And Barry Stanton is here, and he is our Deputy Chief Administrative Officer for Public Safety. Has done an outstanding job in making sure that we're addressing many of the concerns we've seen, the balance between protecting the community and also providing the justice that has been called for also.
Does it provide for more? I'm sorry.
Ms. Jacobs?
No, I'd like to ask a question because I deal with 3 senior citizen buildings in the city of Springs. In the budget, because there's no rent control, is there anything in the budget that could help the senior citizens? Because a lot of them, the rent has gone up so high, and they are struggling.
Yeah, this is a great.
To live. So I just wanted to know, was there something in here that?
Absolutely. Yes, thank you so much, Ms. Jacobs, for coming, and all of my friends who are here, community leaders who are here this morning. Absolutely. One of the items that you heard us talk about was affordable housing. And when we talk about affordable housing, we are most often talking to our seniors who find that over time it is difficult to remain in the county. So you'll see that we have made historic investments in affordable housing, including the right of first refusal is a program that helps us to work with developers to buy properties along areas in the county that we believe will increase in value. Buy those properties, work with developers to invest in them so that we keep the cost low. And so we're doing things like that, the Housing Investment Trust Fund. So we're making millions of dollars in investments to make sure that the price of housing doesn't continue to escalate. Now, I know part of your concern is about rental housing also. And so we'll have to continue to work to make sure we have policies around that. But you should know that we have kept a keen eye on affordable housing. It is extremely important. We don't want our county to grow and prosper and leave anybody behind. And so housing has been one of our priorities.
Brad?
You're welcome.
Does the budget increase the number of police officers? As I read it, as a couple of recruit classes is what you said. Does it increase the number of sworn police officers on the street, or just try to keep up with the losses?
It's mostly trying to keep up with the losses and replace officers who have left the department. The goal over time, of course, is to increase the complement of officers. I think we want to get in the neighborhood of 1,700 or so officers on our force. We're now somewhere around, Barry, was it 13? 14, but that's an improvement. So 1,400 is where we are, but you can see that there's a delta between where we are and really where we would like to go. But for now, we are seeking really just to replace some of the officers who have left and over time build up.
So looking at $5 billion to spend, what is your number one priority? I mean, you can affect things with how money is spent, crime, beautification. What are you trying to do with this budget, just overall?
Well, I'll say it in this way: invest in people. So I have long said that economic development is great, but human development is most important. I think this is a budget that reflects an investment in human development. You'll see that, for example, in the monies that we have invested in schools, school facilities for our children. You'll see it even in the position that I spoke about, excited about the food distribution coordinator to help us coordinate food delivery to residents who suffer from food insecurity, stormwater management, and all of the climate dollars that help us to preserve our environment. And by our community, and I think sometimes people assume that communities that are majority communities of color don't care about the environment, but we are really impacted. And so environmental dollars that help us with flooding and other things that we've seen. The waste collection that our residents have said that they desire. We have invested in that. So you'll see with the workforce development, the American Jobs Center. And so what you'll see, the growing theme through our entire budget is the investments we're making in humans and people. And that includes affordable housing for them. So that's what you'll see a heavy emphasis on. This economic development we know converts to services for our residents. And so we're also investing there, but primarily it is in humans.
John?
Education is going up by about 12% in your budget this year. There's a lot of different ways that money can go. How will parents and the students in the county actually see the results of that increase?
Well, you'll see it in a number of ways. You know, we mentioned, for example, that we have broken ground on 9 new schools just last summer alone. You can expect to see that followed up by at least another 6 schools that we will break ground on. Building all total at least probably about 15 new schools. You'll see those dollars will go also toward pre-K education. We've increased over time the number of pre-K seats that are available to our students. We're working also steadily to try to decrease class sizes. You'll see funding in areas like psychological services for students, which we know we are in dire need of right now. Teacher salaries, we invested in teacher salaries, and so you'll see many of those dollars will go directly into the classroom, but there will be some also that will be used for capital projects to fund facilities.
Will?
The school system had a $2.7 billion budget, so they're going to have to make some cuts here. What is your message to them having to, although it's a larger amount of money going to them, there's still going to have to be some cuts in their end?
Well, we increased the funding to the school system. So the government, year over year, we increase our contributions to the school system. So what we're seeing is the largest investment that's been made basically in recent memory to our school system. So it's not an environment where we're talking about cuts. The school system has experienced increases from the government in terms of the funding that we have invested.
Will, go ahead.
About the food distribution coordinator, what will he or she be doing Is there a job description where people can see what this person will be doing? And will that be expanded upon, especially with what happened during COVID? There's a lot of people had food insecurity.
Thank you. So, you know, I don't know what the exact, I don't have the description in front of me, but I can tell you what it is. So the food distribution coordinator is a person who will look about the county to make sure that our resources, food resources, are distributed equitably. We'll look around the county and discover the parts of the county where we need to increase our efforts and to really keep track of all of our food equity efforts, including Stand Up and Deliver. We have put online over the last couple of years a couple of new programs and really increased our efforts around food delivery. You saw the 4 million meals that we delivered. We delivered just in this last period 1 million, but all total there have been about 4 million meals that have gone to seniors. And now this is up from about 200 to 300,000 meals we generally deliver to seniors. We have increased that number to between 3 and 4 million meals for our seniors. And so the food coordinator will help us look around the county and discover the areas where we need to increase our efforts around food service delivery for those who suffer from food insecurity.
There's a question on a separate note. Wanted to ask you about that leaked email from the treasurer of the Maryland Democratic Party and the comments that were made about the electability of an African-American gubernatorial candidate. You have come out in support of Westmore. What are your comments on that email and what that says about the Democratic Party?
You know, I mean, I think the Democratic Party, like all parties, has to have continuing conversations about how we not only support quality candidates, but equity and you know what the American dream means. I think this is something that the country is grappling with as well, is how do we include people of all races, colors, creeds in America and in our democracy. So it's, I think, a healthy conversation to have, no matter who's having it, to ask whether or not we're meeting the mark. And I think it's fair for the Democratic Party to ask it. I think it's fair for the Republican Party to ask it. But this is a moment where we're looking around our country and saying we want a seat at the table for all Americans. And I think that our party is no different than any other.
Amazon made an announcement today about affordable housing for Carroll's at College Park. Thoughts about that? Hundreds of new units, are you familiar?
Hallelujah. Let me tell you something. So a few years ago, there was much skepticism about whether or not Amazon would invest here. Amazon reversed the decision they made to come to one part of the county, and there was great skepticism. All the critics and the skeptics said, oh goodness, look at that. Amazon doesn't want to be in Prince George's. Amazon has never wanted more to be in Prince George's County than they do now. So I think it does reflect, again, the optimism that we feel. You can see is not by hyperbole or exaggeration. Prince George's County is a desirable place to do business, a desirable place to live, and Amazon's constant and increasing investments in Prince George's County further demonstrate that.